Anna Asper is an educational consultant and learning and teaching development specialist. She's based in Dubai, and she's going to be talking today about how to engage teens and how it's not all about technology. Well, I'm absolutely thrilled to hear your session, Hannah. So thank you so much for being here, and over to you.
Fabulous. Can I say thank you, first of all, to you organizing all this, and Mike and Macmillan. And thank you to all of you that have already joined us. I've been looking at the chat box. I see people from India, Argentina, Uzbekistan, Slovakia, Egypt. So there's lots of us available today, which is great. I'm really pleased that you've taken the time to actually join us today in this little journey, and maybe a slightly different journey, because I'm going to look at other things than purely only technology. Good. Now, if you want to get in touch, because quite often I get messages in the chat box afterwards, feel free to connect, ask me questions after the webinar on LinkedIn, or find me on Twitter, or join my group on Facebook, which is called Teacher Train. That's probably the easiest, instead of you all asking for email addresses afterwards. Now, as you know, we're all teaching from home. So I just want to make sure that if the connection fails, and I think we've all had it over the last couple of weeks, please be patient. Don't panic. I'm trying not to panic either. Get up, have a little stretch, and we will be back. Yeah, let's cross our fingers that the internet is at our side, but you just never know. So great. Thailand, Uruguay, Belgium, Peru, Iran. Madhu, this webinar is mainly for teachers, because we're going to talk about teenagers and how we can engage them. Now, I don't know how long you've been teaching online for. I think it's about 10 weeks, and it's been absolutely fabulous, the amount of support we've been getting from the publishers with all these webinars, but also the sharing and caring that's going on Facebook, on Twitter, that willingness to help each other. It's absolutely been a silver line in this grey-black cloud that all of a sudden came over us. So that's really helped me with my remote teaching. But it also made me wonder and actually question, is it all about technology when you teach teenagers online? And one of the reasons that made me question this is that I felt a little bit like this. I don't know if you recognize this feeling of help. This is overwhelming me. The first couple of weeks, I kept checking online on Facebook group for new ideas, new technology tools, new apps and everything. And I just started to feel a little bit overwhelmed. And indeed, Francoise, if things are so new to you, I really felt I had to disconnect and just do it my way, because my brain said error, overload. It was just overwhelming for me. Now, we've been going for a couple of weeks now, but I have to admit, I can still feel very overwhelmed when I open my Facebook and there is 20 different new apps thrown at me. It's all well meant, but it can make me feel a little bit like this is just too much. Now, I'd love to know how you feel at this stage in your remote teaching journey. And I'm saying remote teaching because actually online learning is very different. If we set up a proper online course, it takes us months to prepare and plan and design what we're going to do. This case, we're just thrown in to online teaching. So I like to call it remote emergency teaching online if you want to. So I love to know from you. You can type in the chat box, but ideally have a look at the poll that you should now see on your screen. Can you tell me or select one of these feelings? If you're loving it, if you have some concerns, maybe you're feeling overwhelmed, maybe it causes you anxiety, or maybe something else that you feel like frustrated, that you can put in the chat box as well. Oh, you can't see the poll, Isabella. I have no idea why. But anyway, if you can't see it, you hopefully can see my slide or listen. I'm loving it. I have some concerns. I feel overwhelmed. It causes me anxiety, or maybe something else like exciting. Lovely, frustrated, coping, tired. A lot of people. And a lot of people saying, I'm loving it, struggling, anxiety, time consuming. And I think that indeed made me feel this whole experience was just super overwhelming. There is so much out there. And I believe that we don't need all of that technology. Now, let me go back to my slides. Good. So I think when I asked this question, I got really interested in what other people were feeling about it when I was talking to my co-teachers. And looking at research is really fascinating. Yale University in the US has a massive teachers survey every April. They ask teachers in high schools, how do you feel? So this year, the end of April, they had the same survey. And there were 5 adjectives that stood out, which was overwhelming, fearful, anxious, worried, and sad. The same poll they did the year before in 2019, and the teachers used a lot of adjectives that were like frustrated, stressed, tired, happy, slightly overwhelmed. So what you can see is this year, because everything that's been happening and us being thrown into this online teaching experience, a lot of teachers indeed feel anxious and overwhelmed. So don't think it's just you if you feel that. It's okay. We're all experiencing this and we're all in it together. But it did make me think, if this is how we feel, I really wonder how my teenagers are feeling. Because there's a couple of things going on. Their brain is really programmed to socially interact with their peers. That social hanging out, that being together is so important for them. So when I did my research on teenagers, I found out as well that they've recently done a poll under teens in Australia, and a lot of teenagers actually felt socially isolated, which is very interesting because they're all going to high school online and they feel very disconnected from their peers, which is fascinating. And that's why I really think it's not all about technology, in particularly when 6 out of the 10 teenagers were saying, I find it difficult to study alone. I feel isolated and disconnected. So there must be more. So what I like to do with you today is explore some of the conditions that I believe, and that research has shown as well, are really important for teenagers, also for young learners actually, and for adults, but maybe even more so for teens, to create those conditions in the classroom so they actually want to learn, and we create that willingness to engage with our teaching. And it's not only to technology, and I don't want to say I'm against technology, totally not. I think it can support what we do, but the choices we make in the classroom need to be based on other things than the tools you want to use. Your teaching shouldn't be driven by the technology you have discovered. It should be driven by principles and conditions of teaching that make learning possible. Yeah. So I like to have a look and explore our audience. Then we're going to look at the concept of engagement before we go into experience those different conditions in activity. So the practical side is putting it into practice. Any questions, use that chat box. And of course, as well, at the end, if you have any questions left. Yeah. Good. So let's have a look then at our learners. I don't know if you recognize students sitting like this normally in the school grounds, sitting outside, being on their phone, familiar maybe to some of us. Interestingly, a majority of students, I think in Australia, again, this research was done, 87% of the students, teenagers, said they love to be on their phone and would like to check their messages if they can every 7 minutes. So that makes us see that technology is for them. It's not a part of their life. Yeah, I'm an old dinosaur. I didn't have this when I was a child. But for them, technology is their life. It's super important for them to connect mainly with their peers and their friends. Yeah. And because of that, maybe they're not always seen as the easiest group to teach. Some teachers find them like the class from hell or the nightmare class. Yeah, but I think there's a lot of positive things and lots of things they do like that we need to look at. So I'd like to hear from you. What you think about teenagers, and we're going to use the chat box. Yeah, so let me set the task for you. If you don't want in your smaller classes with your students, of course, you can also use the microphone and get them to do this activity as a whole class. But it's a bit too many of you today. And I don't know if you have heard of Mentimeter, which is an other tool. I'm not going to use it, but it's a great tool to brainstorm ideas and activate prior knowledge in your students' lessons. Yeah, so check it out. I love it too, Nicola. I'm not going to use it, but check it out if you haven't used it. It's for free and it's very simple to use. But we're going to keep it simple. We're going to use the chat box because I think a lot of us only have a chat box available in the systems our school have chosen. So in a minute, I'm going to ask you a question and you need to write your answer in the chat box. But when you write your answer, you need to nominate the next person who is going to answer too. Now, it's an awful lot of us, so we're not going to do one by one. So people, if your first name starts with A, B, C, Anna, Björn, Charlotte, then you're going to start finding some names in the chat box. And in a minute, you're then going to give your answer. So if, for example, my answer for this question would be they can easily get bored. And then I type in Frederica, and Frederica is going to give the next answer. Her answer might well be they are fun. And then she nominates Steve to answer. So in a way, you keep the conversation going in the classroom. Of course, I cannot nominate Steve again. So your students have to either listen carefully or look very carefully at that checkbox. Yeah, so people with A, B, C as the first letter of your name, have a look, scroll to all those names and see if you can find a name that you want to nominate. And if you see your name, please reply and pick someone else's name. So the question you need to answer, no wrong, no right. Teens, in your opinion, in your eyes, what are they like? So Andrea, you can give your answer and you can say amazing. And after that, you write another name. Oh, Aixa, Anna, creative, lovely. Amunda, Natalia, great, your turn. Katharina, you have to answer too. I see some amazing answers there. Good. Don't forget to pick a name of someone else after that. Ezzy, well done. Sina. So if you see your name, Elena, it's your turn to start writing your answer. Fabulous. Good. Now, there seem to be lots of us here active in the chat box, which is very nice because it always feels a little bit strange when you're talking at the screen. Good. So lots of positive adjectives, which I'm very happy to see, but also some less positive, maybe lazy, crazy, I've seen, rebellious. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer because we're working with people that are continuously changing. They have good days like us and they have bad days like us. Now, I like how someone just wrote tired because even though they might come across as lazy, I think it's very important for us to know that they're often more tired than lazy. Teenagers are going through a lot of changes, physical, emotionally, cognitively. There's a lot going on in their bodies. And to actually function well, they need to sleep at least 9.5 hours a night. Because that's when the brain does all its work. And I don't think a lot of my students get that amount of sleep. So they're often tired in the classroom. And this happens in my physical classroom. Maybe now they rest their head on the keyboard. I don't know, because I don't always see it. Yeah. So they're going to a lot of changes. One of the major changes is that they're trying to figure out in life who they are, what they are like, and where they fit in society. So they're sort of trying to find their place on life, right? That's really what their function is. And that means that their brain bandwidth, that is actually quite full. There's a lot going on in your brain, and that bandwidth we all have in our brain is only limited. Now, a lot of things we do, like drinking a cup of tea, going for a walk, talking, it doesn't take me any conscious thinking. I don't really use my brain bandwidth. But with our teenage learners, there's so much going on in their brain, and they're worrying about, do I look good? Do I impress them? What am I going to say? They have a lot of negative emotions as well. So that really means that there's limited bandwidth for learning. That's one of the reasons why they can lack focus and concentration in your classroom. Because in determinant, that brain is always moving. It's actually still under construction. And if you look at your brain, here we go. Yeah, you've got this bit of your brain, the frontal cortex, prefrontal cortex, and you've got your limbic system in the middle. Now, we as adults, we think a lot, and we use this prefrontal cortex to make good judgments, to show empathy, to think about the consequences, right? Our students actually, till about the age of mid-20s, late 20s, this prefrontal cortex is still developing. So what they're thinking with is their reptile brain, which is that limbic system. And that limbic system is all about, ta-da-da-da, feeling good. So they do something if it feels good. So all the decisions, all that challenging in behavior that we see in the classroom is often triggered by that need to have pleasure and emotion. Yeah, so if it's a decision you wouldn't take and I wouldn't take because we think that's maybe not so good for tomorrow morning, they will do it because, yay, it's fun, it makes me feel good. So they're very emotionally driven in the decisions and in the way they behave. Now, what I've learned from teenagers as well over the years is I think all the emotion and all the behavior they have in the classroom that we might say is bad behavior, it's not really bad behavior because it's behavior driven by them because they have a certain needs. They like to get satisfied, and that need could be that they want to feel a sense of belonging. They want to have a sense of freedom. They want to have a sense of power. Maybe they just want to belong somewhere and they want to have fun. So those key pedagogical principles, they are actually driving how they behave because that's important for them at that stage. So I think it's a little bit more of this and maybe less of that. So, but we've all been there. But I think a lot of us seem to have forgotten as well what it felt like to be a teenager. So we looked a little bit about what it is like in there. But I think we also need to have a look at what they like. So we're going to step in their shoes for a minute, and we're going to figure out what they like about their teacher, because you're such an important person and an important resource. You're actually everything in that classroom, and that hasn't changed now we're teaching online. Yeah, so I would like to find out what you think they feel is important in their teacher. So let me see. The activity, 3 truths and 2 lies. Are you familiar with this activity? And then we're going to stretch in the right direction. If you think the statement I read out is true, you're going to bend to the right. If you think the statement I read out is false, you're going to bend to the left side. Good. I'm just trying to get my slides up for you. Right. I hope you can see that. So when it's true, go to the right. When it's false, you're going to bend to the left. So feel free to get up, move your shoulders, listen to my statement. You think, yes, correct. You're going to stretch that way. You're going to think, no, incorrect. You're going to go and stretch that way. Yeah. So here we go. My first statement about teenagers. They like teachers who ask them to perform in front of the class. You just stretch because I can see you. I'm not moving. Good. Next question. They like teachers who want to be their friends. They like teachers who want to be their friends. True to the right, false to the left. I hope you're all stretching there. I'm going to stay in the middle because I don't want to give it away. Great. The third question or statement, they like teachers who treat them like adults. Right, you're still standing? Next one. They like teachers who are giving them tasks beyond their level. And of course, my last one, they like teachers who are genuine. Left or right? Bit of a stretch for the spine. Gosh. Good. Sit back down and relax. I hope that actually freed you up a bit because we are spending so much time sitting on chairs and that is not good for our bodies and not good for our student bodies either. Good. So the first one we looked at, you probably know what red means, right? As you know, teenagers, they have a very different perspective on social embarrassment. All of a sudden, they start to feel like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. I can't do this. I can hear an echo too, actually. I hope that's gone, the echo sound. Good. But if you ask them to perform in front of the class, you're not making friends with them. There's so much going on. They're emotionally quite vulnerable, and asking them to perform in front of the class probably has the first effects. They don't want to do it. They're not going to do it. Yeah, out. So it's much better to put them in groups, to get them to collaborate and get them to work in pairs or groups together. That feels a lot safer. Now, yes, a lot of you probably said they like to be treated like adults, and I think that is very, very true. They're at the stage in their life that they're actually trying to detach and push the adults away, to trying to find their own place in life, their own voice. They want to be heard and be independent. Now, that doesn't mean that they always behave like adults, but they want to be treated like they're independent. They don't want to be nannied by us anymore. Now, that doesn't mean that they want us to be their friends. At their stage of development, their peers, people that are equal, are a lot more important to them than the adult because they're trying to break away, remember? So what they do want is that we are friendly. They need to know that we care about them. So ask them questions, listen to their answers, have a genuine interest in your students. But they don't want you to be their friends. But if you are caring and paying interest, they're starting to trust you. And when they're starting to trust you, they're starting to respect you, that's when you can start building those relationships with your students. And that is really important. Yeah. Good. So what was the next one we had? The red and black, is a very good question. When something is red, it is wrong. When something is black, it's right. Now, number 4 should be red. Yeah, because they don't like us giving them tasks that are beyond their level. They actually like to see tasks that they can achieve. They want to have this sense of mastery, of power. I can do it independently. I don't need your help. So don't give them tasks that are way too challenging. They need to be achievable. And then the last one, a lot of you already said, yes, they want teachers who are genuine. Honestly, if you start hanging out being the cool dude and talking talking to them like they do, they're going to think you're crazy. That's not what they want. They want to see that you can be trusted, that you care about them. This is how they're going to respect you. And this is what you need to build up that meaningful relationship with them. And you know, at that age, they really crave for real people, authentic people that treat them the way they want to be treated, which is as an adult. You might remember from your own life that you hung out with friends, parents, and that was much nicer than hanging out with your own parents. Remember? So do make them feel you care and be genuine. That's the most important part as a teacher. Good. Now, we did a bit of stretching and bending, but of course, if you want, you can do thumbs up, thumbs down, yeah, whatever you like to do. You can use different quizzes like Kahoot quizzes or gym kits. If you haven't tried that one out, I would say go and check it, because that's really good for formative assessment. And the gym kit keeps on going for 5 or 7 minutes. So the questions they keep having wrong, they keep coming back. So nice tool to check out. But it is not about all that technology, I think. It's about how we treat them, how we connect at them. And also, you don't need to be a tech whiz to actually engage your learners. Yeah? There's a very interesting theory, and I don't know if you've heard about it. It came out in the 1990s. A researcher called Moore, and he researched what happened in the high school, last class of high school in the States, when they introduced video learning. So instead of the teacher doing all the inputs, they were watching a video with the inputs. And the result was actually, which is what they call transactional distancing. The students lost willingness to participate, and they lost willingness to engage. So this is something we need to be aware of, that technology without your face, and this is why it's so important that we are in that screen if we record, can actually create a distance. Now, in the classroom, it's easy. You walk over, you see their body language. But of course, online, we don't always see that. Some students don't want to turn their camera on. They might not. Transactional distance theory. Yeah, so that means it's not all about technology. It's about creating conditions that helps them getting engaged. And to be honest, it's the same online as in the classroom. This is our job as a teacher. And yes, you can use technology to get them engaged. Absolutely fine. But like I said before, it shouldn't drive your learning. Have your objectives ready, know what you want to achieve, then have a look around and find that tool that works in your classroom. But also don't overwhelm them with 20 different tools and apps. Because again, that bandwidth in the brain, there's limited space available. So use it, plan and design it to trigger the engagement, to maintain that engagement, but keep it simple. Yeah. So let's move on to engagement then, because indeed, Maria, there's no learning without motivation or emotion, and they're all needed to engage our learners. Yeah. So let's have a look then. What's all this fuss about? We're always talking about engagement, and there has been a lot out there on engagement, which is so important. Good. So your job again to use the chat box, because we're keeping it simple. What words do you expect in my definition? You don't need to type the whole definition in a chat box, but can you give me 2 words maybe they think are going to be in my definition of engagement? Motivate, triggering the mind, desire, interaction, participation. Wow, this is going so fast, but it's amazing to see. Involvement, lovely. Sorry, I can't read your name so quickly, but I see your words coming past. Willingness, right. Happiness. Interests, getting involved. Beautiful. Now, I'm going to show you 3 different definitions and check if any of the words you've just written in that chat box, if they actually match the definitions. Yeah? Now this you can do with your students too, right? So here you go, A, B, or C. Have a read, and I'm going to be quiet for a minute. Good. So anything similar? Being on task, thinking and enjoying the learning process, actively anticipating in the learning process, being passionate and enthusiastic, and being fully absorbed by whatever it is you are doing, experiencing a sense of flow. Which definition do you prefer? Make your choice. It's completely up to you. Which one do you prefer? A, B, or C? I see a lot of B's. All of them. Well, Mohammed, I think you actually have a very valid point there. They're different definitions. Some of them are taken from the Ed Glossary. The second one is taken from Sarah Mercer, who's written an amazing book on engagement. And the last one from Csikszentmihalyi, who has written an amazing book about the state of flow. I think they're all fabulous. What you can see in here is that engagement is an active process. While we're talking about motivation, it's often that feeling or that mindset. We talk about engagement, it's being actively involved. You're enjoying it, you're actively anticipating, and you're being fully absorbed in what you are doing. So it's not the same as just being busy and doing something. It's really, again, driven from the inside. You're passionate about doing something. Yeah. And I think that sense of flow, we all experience maybe, I don't know, when you're cooking or maybe when you're reading a book, all of a sudden you look at your watch like, oh my God, where did the time go? I was supposed to have dinner ready by now. That really means that being in the flow, you're enjoying it, you're just doing it without feeling you have to. Yeah. So they're all excellent definitions. But you might wonder, why is there so much written about engagement? Actually, for the simple reason that engagement really has a huge impact on performance. If your students are not engaged, and when we look at engagement, but I'm not going to talk too much about that, we're talking about cognitive engagement, that thinking. We're talking about affective engagement, those emotions that somebody just wrote about, but also that behavioral engagement, that doing and that process. If you're engaged in something that you do, that's the stage that your brain is open for learning. That's when the learning happens. And lots of different research from Decky and Ryan, for example, Sarah Mercer, is all about if students are not engaged, the brain is not open for learning, nothing will happen. So this really is a necessary condition that we need to create if we want any learning to happen. Yeah. So I think we know a little bit what they are like. We know what they want us to be as teachers. And the next logical step then for us would be really to figure out what we think engages our teenagers in the classroom. Now, before you're going to say technology, I might say yes, okay, to a certain extent. But as you just heard from me, that transitional distance theory, it's not enough to use technology. Any ideas? What do you think engages your teenagers in the classroom, online or face-to-face? Fun. Use the chat box if you want to. Songs. Emotional bonding. I think that's a really important one. That sense of belonging, collaboration, a certain level of competition, and teachers' attitude. Oh, you are so right. And I think that's a really important one. Good. I'm going to lead you a little bit to my ideas. I think it's all about 4 C's. Now, I don't know which C's you have in mind, but give it a go in the chat box if you want. So emotions is about indeed falls under one of my 4 C's. Communication, lovely. Contact, very close. It's not the word I use, but definitely that craving social contact or social connections. Lovely. Confidence, create. We could have gone for 7 C's, but I've tried to cluster them a little bit. And do you remember the sentences I ask you to move left or right? Yeah, they want to work in groups. So that really goes back to connecting. Yeah, at this stage in their life, when they're going through all these changes, they want to be part of their own gang. They want to connect with people that are equal to them. They also want to connect with you because they need to feel safe in that learning community that you are creating. Communication, as a lot of you said, indeed. They also want a sense of control, which we often call having a choice in the classroom, that freedom that they're looking for. And then the level of challenge gives them that sort of, I can do it on my own. It's a very empowering feeling. They want to be successful without being too much helped by you. Good. So this all links to those key psychological needs that I spoke about before. Now, I hope that you can hear me again, because some of you say yes, others say no. Good. Some yeses. That is always good to see. Good. I'm going to continue. There will be a copy of the slides for you, so you can go through this later on as well. Yeah. So what I want to look at is how we can put these 4 C's into practice using technology in a simple way to support their learning. So the first C we're going to look at is that connection. Remember, your brain is pre-programmed to socially connect with others. It makes you feel safe, and that's what we need to lower the affective filter. And that's only when that learning can happen. Yeah. So also for students, they need to be able to connect to their buddies. That's really important, that they work collaboratively with their peers. Yeah. So one of the ways that we were connecting today is you were trying to connect. I was trying to connect with you by asking you to use the chat box or the poll to, how are you feeling today? It's very important that we actually get a bit of an insight in how our students are feeling. Some students have a blue lens. Yeah. Some students have a red lens. No. Others are just fine. And once you know, it's much easier to see what you can do and make them feel appreciated and respected. So a very simple thing. Of course, your choice was there, so they could give their own feeling. Yeah. The other activity we did, and I often use that as a little connector, 3 things you have done today, 2 things you haven't done yet. It's very important when we teach online to spend maybe 3-4 minutes at the start of your lesson to get your students to actually think about what they have been doing and have some chatting time. It's much harder. In class, they come early, they come later. You can actually have a chat with them. Online, you need to make an effort to connect with your students. Also, chit chats, indeed, Brigitte. And the truth and lies activity, you can give them statements about what you're going to study to gauge their prior knowledge. How much do they already know about this topic? So I'm not going to bore them with what they already know. So connect with them emotionally, ask how they feel, one exciting thing they've done today, and also maybe check prior knowledge before you start to study. Yeah. Now, one activity you probably know is show and tell. Well, you get your teenagers or your learners, any level actually, to just go up and get something that makes you happy. So they might leave, bring something back from the fridge, I don't know. But this is really you asking genuine questions. And Fatima is showing that you care. Now, I've been working that with my learners because I want positive emotions, because positive emotions are much better for learning. When they feel positive, they're much kinder to each other and themselves. So one of the things I've been working with is take a picture of it and upload it. They can take a picture with their phone, which is what they love. They can upload it on Padlet, or they can upload it maybe on another tool at Modo or something if you use that. And here is my item, a special picture. What makes me happy? Can you guess? If you don't have enough ideas, I'll give you a little bit more. I think some of you all must be teachers. Yes, indeed. I have noticed that this has given me so much happiness here. Yeah. So what my students have done, they've taken pictures of items from a different angle and they're sharing it, and we have to guess what it is. It can be a little corner, it can be zoomed in from far away. It's their choice, personal, and it is interesting because we're asking questions. They are sharing it, sometimes on my Padlet, but we're also using Flipgrid. I don't know if you're familiar with Flipgrid, but if you're not familiar with Flipgrid, check it out. So what I like them to do is upload the story on Flipgrid. We've got a picture on Padlet, we guess, and then on Flipgrid, we record our voice and talk about why this makes me happy, where I got it from, what is so beautiful about it. And then you can click on the big cross, and that means that you can actually respond to me and record. If you want to check it out, here is the link for you to check. I'm not sure if there's a minimum age for Flipgrid, Patrick, but I've got my own Flipgrid as a teacher, and this is the code my students type in to get access. So they don't need to do much else than that code. Yeah. So very nice. It's their choice, it's personalized, and they're using the camera and a little bit of technology. Yeah. And I think that's important, that you show you're interested in what they do. You show that you care. That's what it's all about. Because if you care, but they don't know that you care, why would they care about your lessons? Yeah. So if you want to connect with your students, think about technology that enables them to connect with you, to connect with each other, to connect to their life, their interests, and also to connect indeed to their emotions. And connecting to emotions often relates to using visuals or strange stories, for example. And you can use any technology that works in your context, very simple to do that. They can even send each other pictures if you have a class WhatsApp, for example. Good. I'm going to move you on to communication. Also, this is one of the key psychological needs. Your students need to be able to communicate, to share their ideas with you, but also with their peers, people that are equal to them. It's such an important thing for them. And again, that Flipgrid activity, yes, they are communicating. When you use the name chain activity that we started with before, they are communicating their answers and their ideas, maybe on a limited scale, but that's all right. It's the start. And linguistically, Hussein, indeed, practicing is very important. That chat box is really, really useful because they use the language. It's not enough to know. They need to show. So some activities that I use, you recognize them. A dictogloss. If you don't know what it is, please go to Mr. Google. A jigsaw reading, a 5-word live listening in which I give 5 words. They predict my story. Then I tell my story. So they learn a little bit about me as well. And another one I really like is explain yourself. Explain yourself, you can do in the breakout rooms in Zoom, or you can do it, for example, on Padlet, in which they record something again. So explain yourself. I give them a very strange scenario, and they have to explain themselves. So, for example, you're seen in the park yesterday with a dog in your camera bag. Explain yourself. Why? Defend yourself. Why were you in the park yesterday with a dog in your camera bag? The student comes up with a short story, orally or typed, and somebody else can say, yes, but. So you actually can sort of defend and then question, defend and then question. The best thing is that my students love making these crazy scenarios themselves. Apparently, I was seen picking oranges off a tree last night. Right, I'm going to respond and make something. So it's actually sharing, collaborating. Yeah? Nice little Teddy in the bag, isn't he? He's called Teddy. Good. So explain yourself any weird scenarios and see what you get and how you get them arguing. Now, this must be one of my favorite activities. I use it a lot face to face, and I use it at the moment in the Zoom room. So please have a read at your instructions. We're going to look at images. If your name starts with A till F, image A is yours. G till K, image B. L till Q, image C. R till Z, image D. And what you need to do is get your phone out and either scan the QR code, or you're going to follow the tiny URL link and type it in your browser, and then you get to see an image. When you see the image, we're going to move to Padlet, and you're going to write the description of the image. And then see if you can guess, once you have read A, B, C, D, what the connection is. So you don't know the image yet. And people A till F, can you get your phone out and scan the QR code? Or have a look at the tiny URL. Sorry, can't say that today. Yeah. People with B, if you have a QR code, if your last name is GKK, this is your image that you hopefully can see. The Padlet link will come in a minute, Nicola, indeed. Let me type that in for a minute. Then you have C. That is your image. Hopefully you can get to the picture with the QR codes. And then D, this is going to be your picture. The Padlet is there. If you want to go to the Padlet and see and share, describe your picture. I can see some people describing in the chat box. Awesome. Ideally, you're going to describe the picture on our Padlet. Let's see what we're getting here. I see somebody has typed something. Distributing food and basic requirements. Awesome. So you can type that in the chat box. Somebody is active. That is fabulous. Right. I just need an image D now. Type your ideas. And then see in the last box, what's the connection between these four images? Ooh, I see somebody going social distancing. Aha, good. Delphine, good. So you have a glass, somebody painting a glass, somebody having coffee with a friend, somebody helping someone, and somebody walking in the park. Excellent. So my students either get this sent to their email, or we put it in the private chat, or we send it to them and put them together in the chat room or the breakout room, and they talk about it. And what do you think the connection is? We've got problems. We've got global worlds. Activities in your free time. Now, I think you're not far off, actually. My connection, and this is really important for students, I think. Any other guesses? To chill, lovely, friendship. My connection was all these activities that you just saw, that blue coffee, that painting of the flower, are all activities that are really important for our well-being. Yeah, you're sharing, you're giving to people, you're being active, and you're being social with other people. Really important. So it might be a nice warmer. And actually, you can get students to create this activity while they find 4 pictures and send them to the others. And then they need to guess what the connection is. Lots of ideas to talk about. Nice lead-in of your lesson. So communication means they need to be able to collaborate authentically. We already have, actually, because there's a natural gap between my information and your information online. You need to communicate the objectives, why you are doing certain things. And also you need to give feedback. 8 out of 10 students, teenagers who are studying online, have said it's all fine, but we don't get enough feedback from our teacher. So using Flipgrid, for example, or using Padlet, you can save it, listen to it, read it again, and give language feedback. And I think most important is that your channels of communication are clear, clear instructions. They know what to do, they know what to use. And silence. If you want them to talk in the chat room, make sure you give them some thinking time. If you have a slide they need to read, don't talk over it. Your brain needs silence once in a while. Yeah, good. Next one, we're moving on to control. In other words, we're often talking about giving our students choice. Why is this so important? Because they want to be treated like adults, but also because it changes your role as a teacher. You're not the authority, you're actually their learning guide or their learning facilitator. Now, I gave you a little choice before in number 5. And you had little choice here with the name you were going to nominate. And then you had little choice to choose your best definition of engagement. There's many different ways of inserting choice in your lessons without using too much difficult technology. Ask them how many sentences they want to answer, how much time they like for the activity. Do you want to work alone, in pairs, or in a group? And do you want to listen, or do you want to read the story? Yeah? And of course, the other choice is you can give them a menu for homework and they can decide what task they want to do today. Today, Tuesday, I'm going to do task 5. Good, cross it off. The others are left for you. And then they can select the end product as well. How do they want to demonstrate the learning? Recording it on their phone, making a PowerPoint for you, or maybe they just want to write the essay. Yeah, so choice is really important. I love the Zoom breakout things and the polls, because in my class we have a break after about 30 minutes and they can choose what they want to do in break. You want to listen to song, want to watch YouTube, you want to get away from the screen, let's vote. And that's what we do today. Yeah. They also have some choice by contributing to my lessons. They like videos. You select the video you want, but you have to give me some valid reasons why this is a good video. Write 5 questions, give me the answers, and I'm going to check if I like it. We can watch that in class and even use the questions that one of my students have made. They like to contribute to our lessons. And remember, it's not you creating that learning. That learning happens in their head. You create those conditions by giving them choice, connecting opportunities, communication opportunities, and of course, challenge. So give them a choice, but also give them a voice. And I think that's important. A bit of self-assessment, peer assessment. Maybe they reflect on the lesson, but they also tell you what they thought. Teacher, yay! Teacher, that was boring. Yeah, so also ask them to contribute in that way to the learning ideas, materials, and topics. Right, last one. I think we're just going to make it challenge. Now, like I said before, challenge, it needs to be healthy challenge. They like competition. Indeed, they like to be challenged and show, I can do this. But if it's too hard, they get frustrated. They get a little bit nasty. They don't want to do it. Yeah, so your challenge needs to be of the right level so they can feel empowered because they can do it independently. And again, emotions, visuals. I love using stories. And you probably know 6-word stories. Here is Teddy again. And you have to write a 6-word story for me. What would you write for this story? And images you can find anywhere on your own phone, Pixabay, Unsplash, They're all free photos. This is from one of my friends here in my flat who's got a lovely dog. What? Oh, the pom is watching you. Ooh, 6 words. I need 6 words. Judy is seeking for something. Is seeking for something. Aha! Look at mine. I thought this was hilarious. One of my friends came up with it. Shoot. 2 cats, 1 happy dog. Yeah. So this again, put on your Padlet, put on a Word document, put on your Google Drive, get them to think, and the team with the best caption or the best story could be the winner. Again, your students can bring in their own images to do this as well. A very simple activity. Now, the last activity I'm going to talk you through, for homework, I often set them reading, but it's so boring to send, here's the text. So we're using authentic materials because teens really crave this authenticity, this level they can cope with real English online. It's very motivating. So this could be a question for my students. And then they need to get their phone out, they need to go online, different tool, and they have to find the answer. Now, this is homework, so I might not be there. So what I create for them in Google Drive is this document. If you need a bit of help, you can choose. 1 is little help, 2 is something more, 3 is a lot of help. Your choice, what you feel you need today. Number 1, the keywords. Number 2, the keywords in the year. Number 3, the whole link is there. So that actually means that everybody can still do the task, but have a little bit of challenge if they want to. But they're still enabled, which is the most important thing. Because, okay, a challenge is fine, but don't make it too tough. It still has to be achievable. This is when we feel most empowered. Yeah. So when you provide challenge for your learners, be aware of that cognitive overload. Don't make it too difficult. Don't use too many different technology tools, and don't give them too many tasks. There's a lot going on in their lives besides COVID-19. Offer variety. Use their phone, use a website, use an app. Yeah, give them different tasks to do with the choice menu. Make sure you give scaffolding available. Break up what you do. Don't get them to sit for 2 hours. It's too long. And also allow errors and mistake. That is completely fine. That's what we need to nurture in our classroom. Good. So in short, I'm going to answer that question for you. Is it all about technology? I think it's not all about technology. It's about keeping technology that you use purposeful, keeping it simple, and making sure that the technology enables us to make them connect, communicate, be in control, and have a certain level of challenge. But don't overload them with high tech. I think the most important thing is that you make your lessons as human as possible. That is what it's about. You're good at that in the classroom. Use that online. Very simple. Do what you're good at. Be you. Be human. Be passionate, and be there for them, because that's what they really need in these challenging times. Good. So I hope I have given you some ideas that you can take away. And I hope I've made my point clear that I'm not against technology, but you need to use it wisely to make sure that human needs of our teenagers are met in this remote teaching situation. Yeah. So I don't know if there's anything you think I'm going to take this away. It's always good to reflect on our learning. Very important for giving learners control and autonomy. I'm just going to say thank you so much for being here. And if you have any questions, let me know. If you want any reading, I've given you 3 bedtime reading books that I really find inspiring. And it's inspired me a lot in my work with teenagers. So have a look, and anything you want to ask, please use the chat box.
Thank you, Anna. Can you hear and see me?
Good. Any questions? Yes, body language and smile. Indeed. I think you need to have that much more when you're teaching online, right? Because they don't get to see your body. You need to be showing the enthusiasm and passion in your smile and in your voice. Good. I'm glad that it was useful. And sorry for the hiccups there with technology.
Hi, Anna. Can you hear and see me?
I can, yes.
Great. Thank you so much for a great session. As people have been saying, in spite of the tech issues that we've been having, it was a great session and the feedback is enthusiastic. People just loved your enthusiasm and passion. So thank you so, so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us. I think that's really, really good. Thank you.
So if you have any questions for Anna, please type them in the chat box and we'll be able to ask them to her. So there's a question that says, what are the possible challenges that the fresh teachers are faced with? So people that have just become teachers, I guess. What do you think can be most challenging?
I think if you look at remote teaching or teaching online, one of the huge challenges is that actually you can't do as much as you can online as you do in a face-to-face classroom. So you need to plan for less is more. That also means that you can get that deeper engagement with your learners. And I think one of the main challenges is, as a new teacher and a new group, to connect with your learners through the internet. I mean, we've just got this little box that we see each other with. So really spend time every lesson, maybe 3 to 5 minutes, spend some time to get to know them. Not only their name, but get to know them as a person, be genuinely interested. Once you build that connection, they trust you, I think it's much easier to start teaching them.
Thank you. There's another question that, is really about you, because as I said, we've all been struck by your enthusiasm. So Mihaela is asking, what drives you? How do you get your energy?
I thought you were going to ask, what do I eat in the morning? But
I mean, if that helps,
I
do tell us.
think chocolate. No, I think what drives me is that I'm really passionate about enabling my students. And that, I think, if you love what you do, if you love being a teacher, you can put up with so much more, with so many more challenges and bad behavior. Because in the end, what I'm aiming at is making a difference in their life. If they go away with a little bit more English, maybe that helps them in getting that job in the future. Maybe that helps them in getting into a certain college they want to. For me, it's all about people and sort of walking next to them in their learning journey in life.
I think that's the best possible answer ever. Also, because being an English as a second language student myself, it really, really helped, and that's what made a difference for me. The fact that I'd studied English. So, to you, on behalf of everyone that had the same path, thank you so much for that.